My name is Dr. Carina Rebello. I am a continuing lecturer in the Department of Physics. And if many of you have already taken Physics 172, you might have seen me around. I am also an affiliate faculty member with the Center for Advancement of Teaching and Learning, or otherwise known as Catalyst. And I am here today to discuss with you how we learn. How do students learn? Before we begin, though, I'd like to just do a quick icebreaker a little bit, just to kind of get to know you. So if we can just go around the room, maybe just quickly your name, major, and if you'd like to share what interests you or what you brought to here to this lecture today, we'll just do that. Does anybody want to start first? You want to start at the back? All right. Okay.
First year engineering.
Okay. And how about we go to my right? All right.
I'm Sarah, and I'm in first year engineering.
Okay.
I'm Ryan. I'm also in first year engineering.
I'm Lucia, I'm in first year engineering.
All right.
I'm also on the first year engineering.
I'm Yoon, I'm in trouble.
Okay.
I'm Lucas. I'm in FIA.
I'm Lauren, I'm in first year engineering.
I'm Eric. I'm in civil engineering.
I'm Miriam, I'm a senior civil.
Okay.
Kendall, awesome. Courtney, mechanical engineering.
My name's John. I'm a senior in electrical engineering.
Nicole, first year engineering. Hi, I'm Catherine, I'm in first year engineering. Sarah, first year engineering. I'm Kaylee, I'm in first year engineering.
Nate, I'm in industrial engineering.
Pooja, mechanical engineering. I'm Ashley, I'm in first year engineering.
Jami, first year engineering.
My name is Renasa Ghosh, and I'm in electrical and computer engineering.
I'm Sarah, I'm in first year engineering.
Lauren, first year engineering.
Friday, first year engineering.
Jen, first year engineering.
Justin, FY.
And last but not least, the back row.
Yulia, junior in chemical engineering.
Okay.
Emily, first year engineering. Isabel, first year engineering.
Sign up and mention.
Allie, first year engineering.
Okay. So what we're going to be talking about here is how we learn. And despite the fact I am in the Department of Physics and Astronomy, my real research is actually physics education. Okay, so I actually study how students learn. In my case, I study how students learn physics. So aptly named, that's the title of my talk today. There's also going to be 3 other presentations by also members of the Catalyst Center. That'll be Musin Minsky on metacognition and reflection, Dr. Selchin Gusi on academic content standards, and Jill Newton from the Department of Math on nature of learners. Now, actually, what we're going to be going over today and kind of taking away 2 key fundamental ideas, all this actually ties together. Each of these talks has some shared underlying connections with them, with each other. Okay, so one thing I want you to do, and this is a small activity. Okay, now this is not an assessment on your science or physics knowledge. Okay, so whether you get it right or wrong is completely okay. The activity is you have in front of you, you might have to pair up in groups of 2 or groups of 3, but it's a battery, bulb, and a wire. The task is how to get the bulb to light using those 3 materials alone. But the first thing I want you to do, and hopefully you have a piece of paper in front of you, is don't even open up the Ziploc bag yet, but make a plan. Sketch out how you might actually make that connection to get the light bulb to light. All right, so I'm going to give you a few minutes here on your own, kind of make a pre-plan schematic of what you might do. Yeah?
Do you have a spreadsheet?
I ran out. Yeah.
Any piece of paper is fine, right?
Any piece of paper is fine.
Can I have a piece of paper, please?
Do you have, I'm out of paper. All right, so hopefully you're kind of getting a sense of maybe what you might want to do. So what I want you to do is maybe talk to a neighbor. Share with your neighbor your idea. See if you happen to have the same idea or maybe a different idea. But take a moment to kind of rationalize out maybe there's other possibilities than just your own. All right. So hopefully you've had a moment to kind of share a little bit, and it sounds like there's a discussion going, which is good. So what I want you to do is go ahead, open up your packet and your team, and see if you can actually get it to work. Did your schematic actually work out for yourself? See if you can get the light bulb to light. And if you ever think you need a hint, just raise your hand. I'm happy to give you a hint. So do you get it to light? It's hard to hold them all together, yeah. Oh, there you go. Cool. Now see if there's another way you can do it.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Were you able to do it?
Yes.
Okay. Can you show me how you did it? Okay. Now, my task for you is to see if there's another way you can do it.
Okay.
You got it though.
Not really.
Do you get it?
Attempting.
Almost?
No, it doesn't look like it. Truth be told, we just haven't broken bulb the
Oh,
whole
okay.
entire time. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. So actually what I want you to do, first group here, can I get you to talk with each other, see how you're setting it up? Because they have an interesting idea that maybe you're trying to work on. So you had one idea that you got it to work, right? They're trying another mechanism and see if you guys can work together to get it to work. Have you been able to get it?
We
got
our wire very high.
Okay, you got a wire very hot. So what did you do?
Attach both ends.
You attach both ends, okay. So if we have two parts of a wire, meaning both ends, we have two ends of a battery. How do you think we can incorporate the light bulb?
Actually, that's when it was like this. We're gonna put the
Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to create a short circuit by disconnecting both ends. So that's where it's going to get hot. All right? So if you think about a light bulb, does it have one or two ends to it? One? Where would be the one end? So look carefully inside at the filament inside the light bulb.
That's two.
It has two ends. And so if you look carefully, yeah, you'll have one where the filament goes down in the direct bottom of it. But if you look more, there's one on the side, yeah. So now you have to connect all two ends of each thing with each other. So you have to ask yourself, how are you going to get all two ends with each other all connected? Okay. So obviously you can start by putting the bottom of the battery to one end. And now how can you think about holding the light bulb to the top of the battery? And at the same time, connect the top of the wire. So kind of play around with it a little bit. All right, so just a show of hands, how many of you have gotten the light bulb to light? All right, most of you. If you're still working on it, that's just fine. Now, how many of you have found more than one way to get the light? A few of you, middle row. How many ways did you find? 2, 3, 4. Would you be surprised that there's actually 4 ways to do this? No. Ah, you'd be surprised. So this is kind of the interesting scenario, is out of these possible combinations, 1, 2, and 3, which one of these works? Which one would actually make the light bulb light? How many of you, just by show of hands, thinks 1? Just 1? Okay. First one works, right? Okay. From what I've seen, most of you were doing that. What about number 2? Do you think that works? No. It's not a complete circuit, unfortunately. What about 3? Give 3 a chance. Try number 3 if you haven't done that. Ah, so I see some of you have now done that. You got it to work. Okay, so just to clarify, just for everyone, just so everyone's on the same page, is at the end of the day, you have 2 ends of a battery, top and bottom. You have 2 ends of a wire. You also have 2 ends of a light bulb. If you really examine the light bulb very carefully, if you look at the filament directly, you know that one piece of filament is going to go down at the very bottom. That's where we were mostly trying to connect it, like in picture 1. But if you look really carefully, there's actually another end of the filament that's connected to the side, the piece that you screw in, which helps us when we're connecting into an actual socket. Okay? So it kind of becomes this pattern or rule game of finding ways to connect 2 ends of a light bulb to 2 ends of a battery to 2 ends of a wire. So you have to use every piece of 2 ends to create a complete circuit. Okay? Now, I said there was 4 ways. 2 of these ways works. What you'd have to do for the next 2 ways is actually put the bulb on the bottom. Then it works. So there's actually 4 combinations. Now, I don't want you to feel like this, again, was an assessment on physics knowledge or anything like that. Actually, this activity was just meant to illustrate learning. It's a learning activity to illustrate learning itself. Okay? So with that, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. And they're kind of connected to each other. My first question is, when you were making a sketch, when you were kind of predicting what you might do to connect your battery bulb and wire for it to work, what were some of the ideas that were coming to mind as you were making your prediction? What were some of the thoughts coming to mind? Just basic, generic. Anyone care to share? An electric circuit came to mind? Okay. What about that electric circuit? Was there anything special about that or anything around that? Okay, so completeness? Yeah. All right, what else kind of came to mind? Have you ever worked with a battery bulb and wire alone before? A few of you are nodding heads, okay. When you were actually doing the observational piece, meaning you were actually doing the activity of physically making the connections, what was coming to mind then? Was there anything new, different? What were you thinking? Anyone care to share? Yeah?
One thing that we talked about was we weren't sure if it would work the same way with the light bulb on the bottom versus the top.
Okay, so you were doing experimentation. Great. So what I'm trying to get at, sort of, in this inquiry process of just letting you free game it, without me telling you, make this connection followed by that connection, where it's very directional, is you are actually bringing into your own inquiry process some thoughts that you might have already had. You've came in this classroom, sat down with this activity, bringing some thoughts in mind. Maybe the completeness of a circuit somehow came to your mind because you've had some experience with that. Maybe you've seen it before. That's kind of the big goal here, the driving mechanism, is the fact that we all come in with some kind of experiences, beliefs, maybe some knowledge because we've actually done this activity before. But the fact is, in your own inquiry process, you're bringing something to the learning experience. That's going to be one of the key messages today, is that all learners bring something to a learning experience. Now, some of you might be interested in education itself, or maybe you're interested in designing actual learning experiences. Maybe that's part of your EPICS project. What I'm here to do is kind of peel back the curtain a little bit on what does it mean to design a learning experience? What are some of the thoughts and considerations you actually have to bring to bear? Okay. Now, today's lesson is really how do people learn? And that's kind of what's really encompassed in the red circle. Model of a learner. I'm going to house how people learn inside that. Okay? But when we're thinking about how people learn, that's going to connect together what does it mean to create those learning activities? But in creating those learning activities, we have to think about what are the goals? What is the main outcomes or goals that help the person to learn from the situation or activity I'm bringing them into? And also the feedback. You know, how are you going to assess some feedback to understand that they got what you were hoping to achieve from your outcome? Okay, so there's actually, within the three things of generating an actual learning experience, the activities, but activities centered around a goal, and then actually assessing those goals from the activity. But to generate all three pieces, we have to keep in mind what it is that people bring to learning experience, meaning how is it that they learn? Okay, so there's really kind of a big crutch there. So the two key points I hope for you to walk away with today is one, learning is a generative and revisionary process, meaning we generate knowledge and revise knowledge as we come into a learning experience. But bear in mind, we come into that learning experience with prior knowledge. We come in maybe with prior beliefs, and we have to revise those ideas within new contexts or learning experiences. Learning also has to be expended by the learner, meaning the learner has to do the mental energy to learn the material. I could sit here and preach to you, I can sit there and lecture everything out at you, but you may not necessarily be learning it. You might be hearing it, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily learning it. So sometimes you actually have to sit back, just like if you're in a typical college lecture, you can hear all the ideas, but you have to sit back at home, go through the problems, practice, reread, and tackle the material in order to really learn it. So that's what we mean by the learner has to expend the mental energy. And so with that, there is a video. It's called Minds of Our Own. It's based on research that now is probably going back 20 years. But it's really research that has helped guide and shape what does it mean to teach and learn. Okay, so this is kind of a basic video you can find online. It's an Annenberg Learner. There are going to be two video clips, very short, that we're going to go through. But as we go through these two video clips, I want you to think about, what was interesting to me about this? What did I find interesting, or what I might think the take-home message is? Okay.
and a Smithsonian institution. In the world in which we live, the things we do for a living are continuing to change. And we wonder if science and technology will move faster than our ability to keep up. In the years just ahead, will our children have the answers? Will they even understand the questions? More critical than ever is our understanding of how children are taught, of how the human mind really works. Graduates of Harvard and MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology,
We are the premier engineering and science institution in the world.
Do you think you could light a bulb with a battery and wire? Do you think you could light a bulb with a battery and wire? Yes.
Light a bulb with a battery and a wire. Maybe. Yes. Definitely.
Do you think you can light a bulb with a battery and a wire?
Battery and wire? Well, yes, why not?
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, can you do that?
The interesting part about the batteries and bulbs question is that people always predict that they can do it. Students say, of course I can do this.
Any hints I should have here?
Teachers say, of course my students can do this.
Ow! Do you know why that didn't work?
I have no idea.
Battery could be dead, the bulb could be bad, I'm hooking it up totally incorrectly. I'm not an electrical engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer. So that's why I had to guess what it takes. Operator error.
Okay.
That's possible, but I don't know how to do it.
It's only after failing that you begin to get upset with the question and think, well, maybe it's a trick question and maybe this has something to do with manipulating the wires that can hold all the wires together.
You don't have a current if you only have one wire, you need a complete closed circuit.
But that's not the case.
Oh, well, if I do it with a little light bulb, I just do this. In which case, the light just lights up.
It goes to the fundamental understanding of electricity. If one cannot light a light bulb with a battery and wire, then everything built upon those basic ideas has problems.
We've always assumed that if teachers teach, students will learn.
You can't assume that what's blatantly obvious to you and has always been blatantly obvious to you is going to be that way to somebody else, especially a kid. And that's where you have to stop, regroup, and say, wait a second, is this really as self-evident as you like to think it is?
Sometimes the simplest problems in science defy intuition, and the most basic technology is surprisingly difficult to grasp. Is it because we weren't taught? Or is it because of something deeper? Something about the way we think. Jim Carter has been teaching high school physics for close to 30 years.
Plug it in.
The traditional approach to teaching, developed by teachers like Mr. Carter after decades of hard work, is now being challenged by new research, taking into account how children learn.
It sounds obvious that you start with what children think and believe, but that's not the way we've practiced education throughout this century. We've practiced education throughout the centuries. The children were empty vessels, blank slates on which we would write. We just filled them with knowledge. And we've had to reconstruct all ideas about what teaching and learning is.
All right, so that's one segment. I'll jump over to the next one. 19.
They're working very, very hard to figure out what is going on around them. And they develop some ideas about that. And those ideas make sense to them. And they're very powerful ideas.
We often don't consider the impact a child's ideas can have on instruction. Traditionally, it's assumed children soak up learning like a sponge, absorbing knowledge as it's passed from teacher to pupil.
Now I want you to consider something about rolling things. That means you have to have this ball, okay?
But as we'll see, even when a teacher explains things slowly, carefully, and clearly, if the student's thinking isn't taken into account, students often fail to learn.
More. A lot of times you like to think that what you're doing really got across. And a good deal of the time it does, I think. But once in a while, perhaps more than you'd like to think, they miss crucial areas. So there's some things that they didn't quite get as well as you'd like to think that they got them. What Edison came up with was a way of...
To demonstrate why explanations sometimes fail, Mr. Carter agreed to let us videotape his lessons.
So that it would last for a while and give a fair amount of life.
Jennifer is one of Mr. Carter's best students. Let's see how well she learns.
So they come up with this little guy, and it's clear so you can see what goes on inside.
Mr. Carter's goal was to explain that to make the bulb light, electricity has to flow through the filament in a cycle, in through the base of the bulb and out the side.
Inside the light bulb, basically, enough things to make a complete electrical circuit. If you've got the electricity going in, let's say where the threaded base is, it'll go in through that wire that we looked at, up through the filament doing its trick, and out the base. And that's what, electrical circuits are. They're loops, all right? Okay. Here's some wire. I may not have given you enough. I'll give you 4 pieces of wire, at least to start with. Then I'm going to madly start cutting some other pieces of wire. See if you can come up with a way to get all 3 of them on at once.
Jennifer followed up what she was taught with hands-on activities designed to reinforce the concepts. Jim Carter spent almost a month covering advanced topics in electricity in addition to batteries and bulbs.
Just remember, it's got to make a circuit. It's got to make a complete loop.
We interviewed Jennifer 1 month after the lesson. Mr. Carter observed the interviews on a monitor in another room.
If you had like a battery and you wanted to hook up the battery to make the light bulb light up, what might you do?
You just need wire connected to the battery and to the light bulb.
Could you draw for me how you would do it?
Jennifer is concerned that without the equipment used in class, the bulb can't light.
You can just show me how you
Can I use something to plug the light bulb into?
Why
Just
does
the light bulb itself.
like the thing is like this thing here?
Yeah.
Well, why would you need this part?
I don't know, you can't, it just won't work.
And now here you start twisting there. And why did you do that?
Just to keep the wires in contact with each other.
Can we try to light up the bulb and see? I'll hold it for you. Okay.
Jennifer didn't light the bulb.
No.
It didn't work.
But even more surprising was that the mistakes she made were exactly the same ones she made before the lesson.
And then they'd be both connected to the bottom of the light bulb.
What happens if that wire gets too hot?
Jim Carter's careful explanations had done nothing to change her mind.
The electricity going in, they'll give you back what you gave them. But they can't take it another step beyond necessarily because they really didn't understand